What happens when one of the most magical love stories of Hollywood finally gets a second chapter? Imagine the fairy tale of Vivian and Edward, a love that broke every rule but won every heart. Now returning after more than 3 decades, the trailer for Pretty Woman 2 does not just open a door to the past, it revives a romance that millions thought was over forever. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere step back into the roles that defined an era, reminding us that sometimes true love is not just for a season, but for a lifetime. And in this brand new trailer, the spark that first lit up in 1990 is burning again. It's brighter than ever. Asterisk, the release of Pretty Woman to 2026 has taken the film world by storm. The trailer confirms what fans have been whispering about for years. Vivian Ward and Edward Lewis are back. The original Pretty Woman was more than just a romantic comedy. It was a cultural landmark. Back in 1990, it's the story of a wealthy businessman who fell in love with a woman from a completely different world. Wasn't just charming, it challenged the way we saw romance on screen. Julia Roberts, with her unforgettable smile, became a symbol of hope, independence, and strength, while Richard Gere embodied the idea of a man transformed by love. Together, they created a film that not only earned box office success, but also stayed alive in people's hearts for over 30 years. Now, in 2026, this sequel arrives as both a gift and a challenge. Hollywood rarely dares to revisit such legendary classics, and when it does, the results are often met with heavy scrutiny. But from the very first frame of this trailer, it becomes clear that Pretty Woman 2 is not just a hollow attempt to cash in on nostalgia, is a carefully crafted continuation of a timeless romance. The trailer makes one thing certain: this is not about repeating the past, but about exploring what comes after the happily ever after. The opening moments of the trailer feel like a love letter to fans of the original film. You see the camera sweep across a modern cityscape, likely Los Angeles, shining under golden light, as if time itself has prepared this stage for their return. The sound of a familiar melody, a reimagined version of "Oh, Pretty Woman," plays softly in the background, immediately triggering nostalgia. Then there she is, Vivian Julia Roberts, older but radiant, walking with the same confidence that made her character iconic decades ago. The camera lingers, not to showcase glamour, but to highlight a woman who has lived, loved, and evolved. Moments later, Edward appears. Richard Gere's character steps out of a luxury car, but this time there's a noticeable difference. He is not just the polished businessman from the first film. His presence carries more wisdom, more weight of life's experiences. His hair may have grayed, but his eyes still carry that familiar softness, that same vulnerability which made audiences root for him. In that instant, the trailer bridges the gap between the past and the present, reminding us that love stories don't end. They simply pause until life brings them back into focus. What makes this trailer especially powerful is the way it doesn't shy away from the passage of time. Instead of trying to pretend nothing has changed, it embraces it. We see subtle hints that Vivian and Edward have faced their share of struggles since their fairy tale ending. There are glimpses of quiet moments where their smiles fade, suggesting regrets or missed opportunities. The trailer doesn't give away too much, but it plants questions that fans will not be able to resist. Did they stay together all these years? Did life pull them apart? Most importantly, what brings them back together now? The beauty of the first section of the trailer is how it honors the memory of the original without getting lost in it. Yes, there are callbacks, the soft laughter of Julia Roberts, the piercing gaze of Richard Gere, but there's also a new tone. The romance feels more mature, more layered, as if the story is no longer about discovering love, but about holding on to it through the storms of life. For fans who grew up watching Pretty Woman, this sequel trailer is not just a chance to revisit beloved characters. It's also a mirror reflecting their own journeys with love, time, and second chances. By the time the first section of the trailer closes, the audience is left with goosebumps. It's not just about two stars returning to their iconic roles, it's about a promise that Pretty Woman 2 will give us more than nostalgia. It will give us closure, continuation, and maybe even a new definition of what it means to live happily ever after. Asterisk the trailer for Pretty Woman. To waste no time in reminding us why Vivian and Edward's story became legendary. The very first moments create a sense of both familiarity and surprise. It begins with a sweeping shot of modern Los Angeles, but this isn't the glossy fairy tale city we saw in 1990. The colors are richer, the streets feel lived in, and the skyline shows. A city that has grown just as much as its characters. As the camera moves, a soft piano note strikes, and slowly the faint echo of "Oh, Pretty Woman" starts to rise, not the upbeat version we remember, but a slower, more emotional rendition, almost like a whisper from the past calling us back. Instantly, we know this isn't just a sequel. It's a story about time, memory, and the lives we carry forward. Then the camera cuts to Vivian. Julia Roberts enters the frame in a way that feels deliberate, almost ceremonial. She isn't the wide-eyed young woman walking the streets of Hollywood Boulevard anymore. Instead, we see her in a modern boutique, her posture confident, her smile warm, but lined with wisdom. The trailer captures this duality perfectly. Vivian is still the same woman we fell in love with, but she has evolved into someone even more grounded, more complex. A quick close-up of her adjusting a dress in the shop window feels symbolic, as if she is not just tailoring clothes, but also reshaping her life after years of choices, trials, and triumphs. It's a quiet but powerful reintroduction showing us that Vivian has carved her own path while still carrying that spark that once made Edward fall for her. Moments later, we see Edward for the first time. Richard Gere's character arrives in a sleek black car. And while his entrance recalls his stylish charm from decades ago, the tone is noticeably different. The trailer doesn't frame him as the untouchable businessman anymore. Instead, there's a slower pace in the way he steps out, a sense of reflection in his movements. His silver hair glows under the city lights, and his expression hints at someone who has seen the highs and lows of life. The camera lingers on his face just long enough to show both strength and vulnerability. It feels like Edward has been shaped, not just by love, but by time, mistakes, perhaps the absence of the woman who once changed his world. The brilliance of these opening moments lies in the way. The trailer uses visual storytelling. Without a single line of dialogue, we already understand that both characters have lived full lives, and that their reunion will not be a simple fairy tale continuation, but a layered exploration of love after years apart. Subtle visual cues add depth to the story of Vivian, walking past a wedding dress display, pausing briefly with a faraway look. Edward sitting in the back of his car, staring at the skyline as if searching for something he lost. These glimpses spark immediate questions. Did they stay together after their iconic ending? Did life split them apart? Or did their paths diverge only to cross again in unexpected ways? As the trailer unfolds further, we get the first real connection between them. Vivian walks through a busy hotel lobby, and suddenly across the room, Edward appears. The scene is shot in slow motion, with the background noise fading until only the soft music remains. Their eyes meet, and for a brief moment, it feels like time has folded back to that first night when they truly saw each other. No words are spoken, but the weight of decades of history is carried in a single glance. The trailer doesn't need to spell out their emotions every wrinkle. Every smile line, every subtle hesitation tells us everything we need to know. Cinematography in these moments deliberately mirrors the original film. Fans will notice the way the camera angles recall famous shots, the close-up of Vivian's smile, the lingering frame on Edward's watchful gaze, but there's also a maturity to the visuals. It's not about youthful energy anymore. It's about emotional gravity. This choice reassures longtime fans that the sequel is not erasing the past, but building upon it, honoring what came before while daring to show what happens when love ages with us. One of the most striking choices in the trailer's opening section is the silence. Rather than overwhelming us with dialogue or dramatic sound effects, it lets the character's presence speak. The absence of words creates an almost nostalgic pause, inviting the audience to reflect on their own memories of the first film. When the silence finally breaks with a line Vivian softly saying, "It's been a long time, Edward," the impact is shattering, Simple, understated, yet full of weight. Those words are like an emotional spark that ignites everything the audience has been waiting decades to hear. By the end of this opening breakdown, it's clear that the trailer is setting the stage for something larger than just a romantic reunion. It's preparing us for a journey of rediscovery, of confronting the past while embracing the present. The trailer tells us that this is not just about whether Vivian and Edward will fall in love again, it's about whether love, after all these years, can still heal, transform, and inspire. For viewers who grew up with Pretty Woman, this sequence alone is enough to stir tears. For new audiences, it serves as a promise. This isn't just a story of the past, but a reminder that some romances are strong enough to defy time itself. Asterisk the trailer for Pretty Woman to carefully build suspense without revealing too much. That's what makes it so powerful. It doesn't give away the entire storyline, but instead drops enough hints to get fans talking. At its core, this sequel seems to ask one big question. What happens to a fairy tale romance once real life begins? We know how Vivian and Edward's story ended in 1990, with Edward climbing the fire escape, his flowers in hand, to rescue the woman who had rescued him right back. But the trailer suggests that the sequel isn't interested in replaying that happy ending. Instead, it wants to explore what came after, and whether their bond could survive the storms of time. One of the first clues comes through a series of quick cuts showing Vivian and Edward in different settings. There's a shot of Vivian standing at a beach house porch, the wind tugging at her hair as she stares out at the horizon, her face caught between joy and sadness. Then, we see Edward in a quiet office, his hands resting on a stack of papers. His expression thoughtful. These aren't random images. They signal a story rooted in reflection. The trailer suggests that life pulled them in different directions, and now fate is drawing them back together. The biggest tease comes when a new voice enters the trailer. A younger woman, possibly a daughter or a close protege, says, "You always told me love changes everything. Did it change you?" This single line drops a bombshell for fans. It hints that Vivian and Edward might have had a family, or at least built meaningful connections outside of their own romance. The trailer doesn't confirm who this character is, but her presence adds a fresh layer, showing that Pretty Woman 2 isn't just about rekindled romance, it's about legacy, about how love shapes the next generation. We also get glimpses of conflict. One scene shows Vivian and Edward walking side by side down a busy street, their shoulders brushing but their eyes looking in opposite directions. Another cut shows Edward sitting in a dimly lit restaurant waiting, glancing at his watch, and then looking up with a flash of disappointment, as though Vivian never arrived. These shots don't need dialogue to tell us what's going on. They suggest misunderstandings, lost chances, or even years of separation that created wounds still waiting to heal. But it isn't all sadness. The trailer sprinkles in humor. The same kind of charm that made the first film so iconic. There's a playful moment where Vivian bumps into Edward at a gallery, nearly spilling her drink, and she gives him that famous laugh, the one fans know by heart. Edward chuckles, shaking his head, and for a brief second, we're reminded of their undeniable spark. The trailer makes it clear, while the sequel will explore heavier themes, it hasn't lost the heartwarming blend of romance and comedy that made Pretty Woman unforgettable. The possible storyline teased here looks like a tale of rediscovery. It suggests that Vivian and Edward may have been apart for years, each building separate lives, only to find themselves back in the same orbit. There are flashes of them revisiting old places, the Beverly Wilshire Hotel lobby, a fancy car gliding through Beverly Hills, a rooftop terrace with fairy lights glowing against the night sky. These aren't just nostalgic callbacks. They feel like emotional checkpoints, places where the past and present collide, forcing the characters to confront everything they left unresolved. Another intriguing tease comes in the form of business in power. Edward is shown in what looks like a corporate boardroom, but unlike before, he doesn't appear fully in control. His confidence seems shaken, and one scene even shows him walking out in frustration. Vivian, on the other hand, appears more self-assured than ever. There's a powerful shot of her speaking at what seems to be a charity event, her words drawing Applause. This reversal of roles suggests the sequel is not just about rekindled romance, but also about how both characters have grown. Vivian is no longer the woman being rescued. She has become her own person, and if Edward wants her back in his life, he must meet her as an equal. What really stirs the heart in these teases is the theme of second chances. The trailer doesn't shy away from showing pain, but it balances it with hope. In one scene, Vivian gently touches Edward's hand, her eyes filled with unspoken questions. In another, Edward is seen standing outside a balcony at night, glancing upward as if searching for her silhouette in the window. These moments suggest that their story is not finished, that life may have separated them, but love continues to linger. Waiting for the right moment to bloom again. By the end of this section of the trailer, we realize Pretty Woman 2 isn't offering us a perfect fairy tale. Instead, it's giving us something richer, a story about love that has been tested, about choices that shaped lives, and about two people finding their way back, not to what they once were, but to what they could still become. For fans, this makes the sequel feel not just like a continuation, but like a true evolution. It's not about whether Edward rescues Vivian again, but whether they can rescue each other from the weight of the years that passed between them. The trailer doesn't just lean on nostalgia, it thrives on the powerful emotions that come alive when Julia Roberts and Richard Gere share the screen again. From the very first exchange of glances, you can feel the electricity that defined their relationship decades ago, only now it carries the weight of years lived, battles fought, and lessons learned. This isn't the same playful love story of the 1990s, it's deeper, rawer, and more layered, offering us something richer, a romance that has matured with time, but hasn't lost its spark. One of the most striking emotional moments comes in a scene where Vivian and Edward sit together at an outdoor cafe. The atmosphere is casual, but the way the trailer frames it makes the moment monumental. Edward leans forward slightly, his hand resting near hers, as though he wants to bridge the distance but hesitates. Vivian, on the other hand, looks down at her cup of coffee, her expression soft but guarded. When she finally lifts her eyes to meet his, the trailer slows, focusing entirely on that connection. There's no dialogue, yet the silence speaks louder than words. Decades of love, regret, and longing contained in a single look. Fans who remember their playful banter in the first film will immediately sense the contrast. The chemistry is still there, but now it's threaded with unspoken history. The trailer also teases moments of humor and lightness, reminding us that Vivian and Edward's bond has always been about balance. A quick montage shows Vivian laughing in that iconic, full-hearted way that once made audiences fall in love with her. This time, though, it's not over some extravagant shopping spree or a fairy tale surprise. It's in a simple moment, perhaps. A joke Edward makes, or a slip-up that catches them both off guard. These flashes of laughter reassure the audience that even though the sequel is tackling heavier emotions, it still honors the heartwarming charm that defined Pretty Woman. One emotionally loaded scene comes late in the trailer. When Vivian is shown walking away down a hotel corridor, her shoulders tense, her steps hesitant but firm. Edward calls her name from behind, his voice filled with desperation. She stops but doesn't turn around immediately, letting the moment stretch. When she finally does glance back, the camera captures Edward's expression, vulnerable, stripped of the confident armor that once defined him. It's a reversal of roles this time. He is the one chasing, and she is the one deciding whether to let him back into her world. The raw emotion in this short glimpse suggests that the sequel is determined to explore love not as an easy choice, but as a courageous act of trust. Another highlight comes in the form of small, intimate gestures that say more than dramatic declarations ever could. In one shot, Vivian adjusts Edward's tie before a formal event. The action is subtle, but the tenderness in her touch reveals everything: the comfort of familiarity, the ache of lost time, and the quiet hope of rekindled love. In another scene, Edward brushes a strand of hair from Vivian's face, a gesture so natural that it feels unscripted, as if Gere and Roberts themselves slipped back into their old rhythm. These touches remind the audience that romance isn't always in grand gestures. It's often in the quiet, everyday moments that feel the most authentic. The trailer also teases what could be one of the most emotional beats in the entire film. We see Vivian sitting alone at night, looking through old photographs. Her eyes well up as she gently traces a picture of herself and Edward from years ago. Just as the audience begins to sink into this bittersweet memory, the trailer cuts to Edward looking at something of his own, a cufflink or a letter that ties him back to her. The parallel editing makes it clear, even apart, they've carried each other with them. These scenes don't need dialogue because the emotions are universal. Who hasn't held on to a memento of a love they couldn't forget? The romance here is not about grand rescues or dazzling wealth like it was in the original. Instead, it's about resilience. The trailer makes it clear that Vivian doesn't need Edward to complete. She has built her own world, her own strength. Edward, too, has matured into someone less concerned with image and more driven by meaning. Their love story now isn't about saving one another, about recognizing that after everything they still choose each other.